Right now, in the Arctic, something strange is happening. A place most people can't point to on a map is suddenly at the center of a geopolitical tug-of-war between the United States and Europe. And it starts with a sentence that should never be said out loud.
We need Greenland from a national security.
We need Greenland for national security. One way or the other, we're gonna get it. That's not a movie villain. That's the US president talking about a real place. With real people. Living on the world's biggest island. And suddenly, everyone's paying attention. Greenland. Cold. Remote. Mostly ice. And now, strategic real estate. Here's why. Why Greenland suddenly matters. Greenland sits quietly in the Arctic, doing what it's always done. Existing. But geography doesn't care about intentions. Geographically, Greenland is part of North America. Politically, it belongs to Europe. Specifically, the Kingdom of Denmark. And that split identity worked fine. For decades. The United States and Denmark are NATO allies. They cooperate. They coordinate. They share responsibility. Until now. Because Greenland isn't just land. It's location. You can think of Greenland as a giant, immobile aircraft carrier, parked in exactly the right spot. Right between the United States, Canada, the European Union, and Russia. And more importantly, it sits directly on the shortest route between Russia and the US. That's not trivia. That's strategy. And strategy is why the US built one of its most important military installations there. The base that changes everything. On Greenland's northwest coast sits Pituffik Space Base, formerly known as Thule Air Base. This isn't some token outpost. This was built during the Cold War for one job. Detect Soviet missile launches. Early. Before they land. Think of it like a smoke alarm for nuclear war. The base pushed America's defensive line 2,000 miles north. And it still operates today. In fact, it's the northernmost US military base in the world. And don't let the footage fool you. This place is brutal. Winters are savage. The environment is unforgiving. Which makes it even more telling. Despite Denmark technically owning Greenland, it's American power, not Danish power, that guarantees security. Even Danish experts admit it. Because patrols on dog sleds and a handful of naval vessels don't stop missiles. Radar does. Aircraft do. And global military reach does. The alliance that suddenly feels awkward. For years, this arrangement worked. Denmark handled governance. The US handled security. Everyone smiled. Then Donald Trump entered the chat. He didn't just suggest buying Greenland. He refused to rule out military force to take it. That sentence alone rattled Europe. Suddenly, Denmark's prime minister is flying across the continent, trying to rally allies. Not against Russia. Not against China. Against America. That's new. And uncomfortable. Because now the question isn't who protects Greenland? It's who threatens it. Why Trump wants it. Trump's argument is simple. Blunt. And very Trump. Russia is active in the Arctic. China is active in the Arctic. And the US isn't letting that happen. He points to Chinese ships. Russian ships. Growing cooperation between Moscow and Beijing in northern waters. And to be fair, they are there. But what stunned Europeans wasn't concern. It was the conclusion. That the solution wasn't cooperation. It was control. Ownership. Which is where things start getting dangerous. Denmark's impossible job. Denmark is a country of about 6 million people. Its capital, Copenhagen, is farther from GIUK, Greenland's capital, than Washington, D.C. is. Let that sink in. And Greenland itself? It's half the size of Europe. Even if Denmark poured its entire military budget into Greenland surveillance, it still couldn't see everything. Especially not in one critical region. The GIUK Gap. Greenland. Iceland. United Kingdom. This stretch of ocean is a NATO choke point. A tripwire. It's where submarines moving from the Arctic into the Atlantic get detected. Tracked. Contained. Miss something there, and suddenly Russian submarines are much closer to places they shouldn't be. That's why surveillance matters. And that's why Denmark is investing in drones and ships. But even then, everyone knows the truth. Without the US, the system collapses. How this all started. This partnership didn't come from nowhere. During World War II, Nazi Germany occupied Denmark. Greenland was suddenly exposed. So the Danish ambassador in Washington made a decision. He allowed the US to occupy Greenland to stop a German takeover. Over 10,000 US fighters and bombers passed through Greenland on their way to Europe. The island became a logistical lifeline. It proved so valuable that in 1946, the US quietly offered to buy Greenland for $100 million in gold. Denmark said no. And both countries kept it secret. Not long after, both joined NATO. In 1951, they signed a treaty on the common defense of Greenland. That treaty? Still active today. Which makes modern threats awkward. Why this time is different? Because this isn't just about missiles anymore. It's about money. In February 2025, a US Senate committee hearing revealed something important. Greenland isn't just ice. It's minerals. A lot of them. Precious metals. Base metals. Industrial minerals. Rare earth elements. The kind of materials modern economies choke without. One witness put it bluntly. Throw a dart at Greenland's coastline and you'll hit a potential world-class mineral target. Sounds impressive. And it is. But here's the reality check. The myth of instant riches. Despite the hype, Greenland barely mines anything. There are 2 active mines. Total. About 100 people work in the entire mining sector. Why? Because mining in Greenland is brutally expensive. No roads between settlements. Rough terrain. Deep fjords. Glaciers. Harsh climate. And when a major rare earth deposit was identified in southern Greenland, exploration stopped. Why? Because it also contained radioactive uranium. And it was close to populated areas. So no. This isn't a mineral gold rush. Not yet. But climate change is rewriting the math. When ice melts, power shifts. Ice is melting. Faster. More extensively. Whether you like it or not, physics doesn't vote. As ice retreats, access improves. To land. To minerals. To shipping routes. NASA visualizations show Arctic ice shrinking dramatically since the 1980s. And while scientists see warning signs, corporations see opportunity. 3 routes matter most. The Northwest Passage, the Northern Sea Route, the Transpolar Sea Route. These paths could slash shipping time between Asia and Europe. Shorter than the Suez Canal. Right now, icebreakers are required. Navigation is limited. Costs are high. So this is still future tense. But geopolitics always plans ahead. Greenland's economic reality. Today, Greenland survives on fishing and subsidies. Every year, Denmark sends about 500 million euros to Greenland. That's roughly half of Greenland's government budget. Nearly 10,000 euros per resident. This isn't charity. It's stability. Without it, villages collapse. Local economies implode. Jobs disappear. Social problems don't slowly creep in, they rush. And Denmark gets something in return. Influence. Greenland gives Denmark strategic relevance it could never buy on its own. Suddenly, Denmark isn't just a small European country. It's an Arctic power. It gets a seat at serious tables. With the US. With Canada. With Russia. That matters more than most people realize. Because in global politics, geography is leverage. And Greenland is leverage on an enormous scale. But there's a problem. Dependence limits choice. Subsidies stabilize, but they also trap. True independence isn't just about flags and speeches. It's about paying the bills when the safety net disappears. And right now, Greenland can't. Greenlanders don't want this forever. Most Greenlanders don't see their future with Denmark. And that's not sudden. It's historical. Inuit people lived on Greenland for thousands of years. Hunting. Fishing. Living with nature. Then Denmark arrived in 1721. Colonization followed. Christianity imposed. Language replaced. Families separated. That trauma didn't vanish. It lingered. After World War II, decolonization began. Slowly. Greenland gained its own parliament. Its own government. Control over domestic affairs. It is now semi-autonomous. And it has the right to declare independence via referendum. Polls suggest most people want exactly that. What Greenlanders actually want? Ask Greenlanders if they want to be bought. The answer is immediate. No. Why? Because this is their land. Their culture. Their language. They don't want to be Danish. They don't want to be American. They want to be Greenlandic. But independence isn't cheap. So Greenland is playing a careful game. It has representative offices in Iceland, the European Union, the United States, China. It signs cooperation agreements on mineral exploration with the US, with the EU. It keeps options open because independence requires partners. Why Trump changes everything? Trump's interest changes the conversation. For some Greenlanders, it feels like a once-in-a-generation moment. Global attention. Leverage. Possibility. After decades of being ignored, the world is suddenly looking north. That alone has value. Attention creates options. Options create pressure. And pressure can force deals that once felt impossible. For Europe, though, it's alarming. Because suddenly, a NATO ally sounds less like a partner. And more like a territorial power. Language matters. And the language here isn't about cooperation. It's about ownership. Some analysts say it out loud. That Trump is talking about Denmark. The way Putin talks about Ukraine. The way China talks about Taiwan. Not history. Not culture. Not consent. Spheres of influence. Raw power. Strategic maps. Deals made over people, not with them. America first. Stripped of diplomacy. Amplified by ego. And pushed to its extreme. The danger isn't just what happens to Greenland. It's what this logic normalizes. Because once allies start sounding like empires, no border feels permanent anymore. Europe closes ranks. Denmark knows it can't face this alone. So it reframes the issue. Not US versus Denmark, but US versus Europe. Because together, Europe is stronger. And because if Greenland can be pressured, who's next? The outcome of this dispute will be watched globally. By allies. By rivals. By anyone wondering if the rules still matter. In a world increasingly shaped by great power ego, where influence is measured in bases, routes, and resources, and consent is treated like an inconvenience, Greenland stands at the center of a very old question. In a system where geography matters more than people. Where melting ice opens new ambitions. And strategic maps move faster than democratic voices. Who actually gets to decide the future? Is it the Greenlanders who live on the land? Who understand its costs, risks, and rhythms? Or is it distant leaders? Leaning over polished desks. Confusing ownership with legitimacy. And strategy with entitlement? History has seen this before. Power speaks loudly. Maps get redrawn. Promises are made without permission. And later, the same leaders wonder why resistance follows ambition. Because self-determination isn't a luxury. It's the foundation of stability. Ignore it, and even the coldest places eventually heat up. If you want more clear, honest breakdowns of global power, politics, and the stories behind the headlines, subscribe to the channel and stay curious with us today.